Today's program is called How to Write a Boring Story and How to Avoid Accidentally Writing One. Our author today is Laura Gehl. She is an award-winning author of more than 30 popular picture books, board books, and early readers, including One Big Pair of Underwear and the Baby Scientist series. New in 2022 are Donut, the Unicorn Who Wanted to Fly, the Hiking Viking, and Apple and Magnolia. A former science writer and teacher, Gehl holds a PhD in neuroscience. She lives in Chevy Chase, Maryland, with her husband, 4 children, and a large stash of dark chocolate. Please help me welcome Laura Gehl.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yes, I am Laura Gehl, and I have the amazing job of getting to write books for kids and then getting to talk to kids about books and writing. So here are some of my books. And here are 3 of my favorite things up in the corner. You can see me and my husband hiking. I love to hike, and that was part of the reason that I wrote a book called The Hiking Viking. And then, of course, it's not going to surprise you that books are one of my very favorite things, and then ice cream is my absolute favorite food, and I often have it for breakfast as soon as my kids go to school, so don't tell them. To tell you a little bit more about myself, we're going to play 2 truths and a lie. If you've never played this game before, it's super simple. I'm going to tell you 3 things, and you're going to try to guess which one is the lie. And you can show me your guess by just holding up 1, 2, or 3 fingers. So number 1, my favorite color is blue. Number 2, my favorite cereal is Cheerios, the regular kind, not Honey Nut. Or number 3, my favorite movie is Encanto. Which one do you guys think is the lie? All right, I see votes for 1, 2, and 3, so some of you are going to be right. The right answer is number 3. My favorite movie is not Encanto. In fact, it was probably one of my less favorite animated movies, but I certainly know lots of kids who really loved it. All right, number 2. I like swimming, I like playing video games, or I like visiting new places. Which of those is the lie? All right, this time you pretty much all agree, and you are right. Video games, not my thing. My kids love them, but I would always rather be reading a book. And one more round. This one's about pets. I used to own a cat named Pudding. I used to own a gerbil named Pepper, or I used to own a fish named Pixie. Which of those do you think is the lie? All right, we've got a mix of guesses. This time the right answer is number 1. I've never had a cat, but I do think Pudding would be a cute name for a cat. So in order to understand writing a boring story, you certainly need to understand an interesting story. What makes an interesting story? Interesting characters, interesting setting, interesting plot, which means having an interesting problem, or as we sometimes call it, a conflict, and then having humor in your story, of course, always helps make it interesting. And these are all illustrations from some of my books. So I'm going to start by reading you guys The Hiking Viking, and then we can see what makes that story, I hope, interesting. From the moment he was born, Leif was different. The other Vikings liked to battle and brawl. Leif didn't. The other Vikings liked to holler and howl. Leif didn't. And when all his friends wanted spears and axes for their birthdays, Leif asked for a hiking stick instead. Every morning, Leif headed for the hills. Atop the fjord, in the place he treasured most, Leif could see for miles and miles. It was beautiful, it was quiet, it was peaceful. But somebody always turned up to drag Leif back to the village. "Come with me," Mama said. "It's time for wrestling." "Come with me," Papa said. "It's time for spear throwing." "Come with me," Leif's big sister Ingrid said. "We need to practice lifting heavy rocks for the Viking games. Heavy stones, oops. Over and over, Leif tried to explain why he loved being up in the hills, but his family didn't get it. As the Viking games got closer and closer, Leif's family kept him busier and busier. Leif couldn't escape from the village for even a minute. The honor of our clan is at stake, Leif's papa lectured. If we don't win the Viking games, Bjorn and his clan will think we are weak, Leif's mama lectured. They will try to take over our land. It's time for you to stop wandering the hills and grow up, Ingrid lectured. Leif's heart was at the top of the fjord, but he tried his best to join the rest of the village in preparing for the games. When the big day arrived, Leif wrestled. He threw a spear with all his might, and you can see his spear does not go very far. And he lifted the heaviest stone he could manage. Not very heavy. At the end of the afternoon, the score was tied. The clan that can show us the greatest treasure by sunset will be the winner, the head judge declared. As the rest of his clan raced to bring the treasures they had collected on their travels, Leif stared down at his hiking boots. I should have practiced more, he thought. We might lose the Viking games because of me. At the end of the day, the judges examined the treasure hoards of both clans. The score is still very close, the head judge stated at last. But the winning clan is... Wait, Leif said. I have a greater treasure to show you. Is it silver? One judge asked. Is it gold? Another judge asked. Yes, Leif said. Come with me. The judges followed Leif. Confused, Leif's family and the rest of their clan followed the judges. Stand here, Leif told everyone. Now you can see our greatest treasure. As the sun dropped from the sky, the stone cliffs gleamed like polished silver. The water below glittered with gold. For a long time, nobody said a word, but Leif could tell by the looks on their faces that his family finally understood. It was beautiful, it was quiet, and it was peaceful, at least for a little while. Young Leif, your clan wins the Viking Games! So this book has an interesting setting. It's set in Norway, the land of fjords, which is not a place that we usually see picture books set. And it also has interesting characters, Vikings, and then there's an interesting problem, which is Leif has something he wants to do all day, and it's not what his family wants him to do. But on the other hand, he also doesn't want to let down his clan by not helping them win the games. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to brainstorm some interesting characters and settings and problems. So raise your hand if you have a character for me. It can be any kind of character. A goblin, I love it. Yes. A cat, excellent. Yes. A spy, yes, I wrote a book about a spy. That's perfect. Okay, settings. Who has a setting, a place for me? Any interesting setting? Yes. A prairie, that is awesome. Yes. A forest. And one more, yes. And the mountains. Excellent. Okay, and what about a problem? These can be harder to think of, but it can be, someone stole someone else's treasure or literally any kind of problem that any character might have. Getting lost, perfect. Another problem. Mm-hmm. Awesome, taking over a kingdom. And one more, yes. And someone, so let's see. Someone steals something. All right, so now I'm going to mix these together and see what story ideas we came up with. Maybe we have a goblin who lives in the mountains and who steals something from a cat. Or maybe we have a spy who lives in the forest and gets lost. Or maybe we have a cat who lives in the prairie and then tries to take over the kingdom of the goblin. So anytime you guys are writing a story and you just can't think of how to get started, this is an easy way to start. Just think of a bunch of characters, a bunch of settings, a bunch of problems, and then kind of mix and match them until you get to something that you think would make an interesting story, and then you can start writing it. All right, continuing on. So I'm going to read you one of my books. This one is very different. It's called My Pillow Keeps Moving. You'll notice there's not really a lot of words in this book. So in this scene, which has no words, we can see there's a dog and a cat. They're huddling together outside of a pillow store, and we see that there is a sale going on today. It says, pillows on sale, guaranteed soft and fluffy. And then we see the dog go inside and take a nap here on the pile of pillows. And then we see a man who went in and tried to buy a pillow, but accidentally bought the dog. Obviously, that's going to go really well. So he gets home and he's trying to sleep with his new pillow, but he's not getting any sleep because his pillow is actually a dog. So then he brings the pillow/dog back to the store and he says, I bought a pillow here and I think it is broken. And the salesman says, that comes first. What seems to be the problem, sir? I bought a pillow here and I think it is broken. My pillow keeps moving. Sir, is your pillow soft? Yes. Is your pillow fluffy? Well, yes. Then your pillow is not broken, sir. Would you like a sticker? And you can see the sticker says, I'm a happy Pillow Place customer. But he is not actually happy. But he decides, okay, no problem. Forget the pillow. I am going to go to the furniture barn. They're having a sale on footstools, and they also have a guarantee. It says, our comfy footstools will never fall over. But as we can see, what's that in the window of the store? Right, the dog's tail. So the dog has made his way into the footstool store, and now the man goes in and he buys himself a great footstool, except he accidentally bought the dog again. So he takes his footstool home and he's trying to listen to music, but all he hears is, oh, bark, 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 yap, 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 grunt, 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 snort, snort, snort. So he brings his footstool back to the store and he says, I bought a footstool here and I think it is broken. What seems to be the problem, sir? My footstool is noisy. Woof. Sir, is your footstool comfy? Yes, but did your footstool tip over? Well, no, but then your footstool is not broken, sir. Would you like a pin? And so he gets a pin that says, I'm a happy furniture barn customer. And he thinks, okay, forget this. I'm just going to go get myself a nice warm winter jacket so I can go for a walk and just be outside and relax that way. So he goes into the jacket store and he tries on a few jackets. This one's too fringy, that one's too small, that one's too puffy. And then he finds the perfect jacket, except he has accidentally bought the dog again. So he's in the supermarket and it's not going well because the dog is making all these embarrassing smells and burping and tooting, and then he goes to the park and the same thing is happening and the guy is getting more and more embarrassed, so he goes back to the store. I bought a jacket here and I think it is broken. What seems to be the problem, sir? My jacket is stinky. Sir, is your jacket warm? Yes, but is your jacket cozy? Yes, but I give up. So he goes back home. He hasn't managed to return the jacket/dog, and he tries to take a nap, and you can see he's very grumpy, but while he's napping, the dog comes and snuggles with him, and he starts to smile, and then he says, you know, as a jacket, you stink. But maybe you're more of a Jackie than a jacket. And then we see here in the next illustration, he is sharing his meal with Jackie. He's gotten a personalized dish for her. But what do we also see in the window there? The cat, right? So of course the dog's not going to forget about his friend the cat, right? We know somehow the dog is going to make sure his friend finds a home too. Okay, Jackie, shall we go for a walk? I'm in need of a new hat. So Jackie winks at the cat, and then there he goes into the hat store, and he comes out with his new hat, which is of course actually a cat. But it's okay. At this point, he's made peace with it, and he has basically found a new family with the dog and the cat. And we see on the mantle, before the mantle only had pictures of himself, which was really sad. Now he's got pictures of himself with his new family. So what makes this book interesting is that it takes the problem of a dog needing a home and it combines it with humor. So when you have your main character and you put them in a silly situation, you're always going to end up with an interesting book. So we are going to do the same thing. We are going to brainstorm some characters, some places, some things, and some animals, and we're going to basically take the same situation that we had in this book and come up with a bunch of new situations. So who has a character for me? Let's try and think of some we didn't use last time. Yes?
A dog.
Say it again?
A dog.
You know what? A dog is an amazing character. For this one time, we're not going to use a dog as a character because we're going to have a separate place for animals. So can you give me one that's not an animal?
A human.
A human, absolutely. Yes? A triceratops. I will say that's different enough from an animal. Another character, yes. A librarian, love it. Okay, what about places? Who has a place? Any place?
A candy store.
A candy store, I love it. Yes.
A restaurant.
A restaurant. Yes. A zoo. Okay, and what about things you could buy, like something you could buy in a store?
A hot dog.
A hot dog. Excellent. What else could you buy in a store? Yes. Meat, okay, and candy. Excellent. And now I will take some animals, interesting animals. Could be your favorite animal, your least favorite animal. Yeah. A spider, awesome. Okay, another animal that we haven't heard yet.
Tiger.
A tiger. Fabulous. And one more, yes. A giraffe. All right, so now we have 3 new silly situations that we could write a book about. We've got a human walks into a candy store trying to buy a hot dog and, oops, accidentally bought a spider. We've got a triceratops who walked into a restaurant, tried to order meat, and accidentally ordered a tiger. Which, I mean, honestly, if you got a full tiger for a triceratops, that might be pretty good. Then we've got a librarian who walks into a zoo trying to buy candy and accidentally buys a giraffe. Awesome. Oof. So, just to recap, the opposite of what we've been trying to do, if you want to write a boring story, you need really blah, boring characters. You need a blah, boring setting. You need to have no problem or conflict and no humor. So here's an example for you. A man and a woman lived in a place. Nothing really happened. The end. So we are going to start with that story, the most boring story that I could possibly come up with, and we are going to try to make it more interesting. So I'm going to need 4 volunteers to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, if you guys can all come up right in the front here. Anyone who wants to is going to have a chance to be part of this game. Perfect. Okay, so we are going to change the parts of the story that are currently boring and try to make them as interesting as we can. So, instead of a man, what character are you going to be?
A cat.
A cat. Instead of a woman, what character are you going to be?
Lion.
A lion. So we have a cat and a lion, and instead of living in a place, where are they living?
A mansion.
A mansion. A cat and a lion are living in a mansion, and what is their problem? You have the hardest job. Coming up with the problem is always the hardest. If you need a second, that's fine.
Their clothes don't fit.
A cat and a lion are living in a mansion, and none of their fancy clothes fit. I love it. This is a great story, but we are going to keep changing it. So when I call on you, what you're going to do is you're going to come up and tap one of your classmates on the shoulder. They will then go back to their seat, and you will take their place in the story and change that one part. So raise your hand if you are ready to come up. All right, come on up. Come change part of our story for us. Any part that you want to change. Oh, we no longer have a cat. Now we have what?
A dog.
A dog and a lion living in a mansion, and their clothes don't fit. Awesome. All right, come on up. Which part of the story are you going to change? Okay, we're going to have a new problem. All right, we have a dog. We have a lion. They are living in a mansion, but they have a huge problem, which is
Don't have food.
they have no food. I kind of think the lion's going to eat the dog, but we shall see. All right, who's going to change our story next? Yep, come on up. Oh, I was actually calling you, so both of you come on up. No, it's okay. We can change two parts. It's all good. Come on up, both of you. Okay, no more dog and no more mansion. Okay, instead of a dog, we have a lizard. So now we have a lizard and a lion living where? In an apartment building, and they have no food. Awesome. All right, let's change the story some more. Who's ready to change? Okay, all three of you, come on up. All right, one more change. You want to change a character or a setting? Okay. All right, we have all new characters here. We have
A snake.
a snake
Owl.
and an owl, and they are living where? Still in the apartment. I'm so sorry, I forgot. And their problem is
They have no friends.
they have no friends. Oh, that's so sad. All right, who's going to change our story some more? Okay, the three of you right there. I promise, I will get to you.
No.
Okay. You're going to have to remind me. I now forgot your character.
A snake.
A snake and a
Kangaroo.
kangaroo are living where?
In a zoo.
In a zoo, and they have a problem, which is
House burns down.
their house burns down. Oh my gosh, that is a really big problem. Okay, yes. One, and anyone who hasn't had a turn want to go? Yeah, good, good. Any of you guys want to come? No, not yet. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, you in the red, come on up. Perfect. All right, so we still have a lizard. Oh, no, we do not. Goodbye, lizard. Okay, we have
Ant.
an ant and
A bear.
a bear. And remind me where they're living?
A zoo.
They are living in a zoo. And what problem do they have?
They committed tax evasion.
They committed tax evasion and they are so going to jail. Oh my goodness. All right, I love it. You guys are getting more and more interesting. That's exactly what I want to see. All right, who's ready to change our story and dial it up even more? Yes, right here. Excellent. And right there. Excellent. Sure, come on up. And you. All right, we are going to change every single part of the story. I called on 4 people. Let's see. Okay, now we have
A dragon.
a dragon
Wolf.
and a wolf. And where are they living?
Nowhere.
They are living nowhere. That is already kind of a problem, but they have another problem, which is
They don't have anything.
they have nothing. They are living nowhere and they have nothing. Oh my gosh, this is bleak. This is really bleak. All right, let's change it some more. All right, 1, 2, come on up. Wow, we are getting close to 100% participation from you guys. This is amazing. Okay, and 3, 4 there. All right, sorry, you are out of choices. You are destined to be the problem. Okay, who are our characters this time? We have a brachiosaurus. See, we're getting more specific. Before we just had a dinosaur. Now we have a specific dinosaur. I love that. And a llama, one of my favorite animals. And where do they live? A museum. They live in a museum. And it's great, except it's not, because they have a huge problem, which is what? They have math homework! No! They just want to look around the cool museum, but their mean teacher gave them math homework. That is just the worst. Okay, we're going to do a few more rounds because I want to make sure to leave time for questions. All right, if your friends come up at the same time, you want to come up? What do you think? All right, all 3 of you guys, and come on up. I'll try to give everyone one more turn before we move over to questions. Okay, who do we have in our news story?
A snake.
We have a snake and a puppy, and they are living
In a desert.
in a desert, and everything is great except
They have no toilet.
they have no toilet. Oh my goodness! The horror! The horror! Okay, let's see. 1, 2, and in the back, 1, 2. Come on down. Now that you guys are relaxed, your true personalities are starting to come out. I can see it. All right, our new characters are
Parrot.
a parrot. Love it.
Jimmy Neutron.
And Jimmy Neutron. And they are living
In the ocean.
in the ocean. And as if that isn't enough of a problem,
They don't have gills.
they don't have gills. Oh my goodness. I would actually love to see you guys write that and see how you would solve that problem. All right, let's see. All right, you 3, and okay, at this point, if you've had a lot of turns, put down your hand. I just want to make sure anyone who's only had a small number of turns. Okay, in the back.
Brain blast.
Yeah, I will call on you 4 for one more in a second. All right, we have a new cast of characters, which is, we have
A gopher.
a gopher and
An ant.
an ant. And they are living where?
In space.
They are living in space. And it's so cool to be living in space, but there's a major problem, which is,
Stole from the president.
say that one more time.
They stole from the president.
They stole from the president, and the president wants revenge. Okay, you 4 for our last round. Come on down.
The problem, don't you? Wow. Wow.
Oh, we need one more character. You guys are both trying to be the setting. One of you is going to have to be a character. Sorry. All right. In our final story of the day, we have a snail and an elephant, and they live
In a hospital.
in a hospital. Interesting. And what is their major problem?
They don't fit in their desk at school.
They don't fit in the desk at school. Intriguing. I love it. All right, you guys can go ahead and sit down. And now it is time for questions. So if you guys have any questions about writing books, how books get published, how long the whole thing takes, anything related to books and writing, this is your chance to have your questions answered. How do you come up with the ideas? That is actually the question that I hear the most, and the answer, at least for me, is that I get my ideas everywhere. I get them from my own kids. I get them when I'm talking to kids. I may steal some of those amazing ideas you guys just came up with. I have a book called The Ninja Club Sleepover, and that one is about 3 friends, 3 girls, and one of them, the main character, is a werewolf, but her friends don't know, and she's worried that if they find out, then they won't like her anymore. And so that book started with my daughter being in elementary school and always feeling like if her friends knew this, then they wouldn't like her anymore, and if her friends knew that, they wouldn't like her anymore, and all of her friends sort of had similar worries, and so that was how that book started. And in the end of the book, she discovers that her friends have secrets too. One of them is actually a fairy, and one of them is actually a vampire, and they had that same worry. And so I wrote that book to show that, of course, any true friend is still going to like you, even when they find out your deep, dark secrets. Yeah?
How long does it take you to write a book?
So it takes me between a few months and a few years to write a book, depending on which book it is, but the writing of the book is just the start of the process, because for the kind of books I write, there's the illustration, and then there's the actual printing, of course, so the whole process usually takes at least 3 years. Yeah?
What was your first book?
My first book was One Big Pair of Underwear, and the idea for that one came to me when my oldest son, he's now in college, but he was a baby, and I was getting up in the middle of the night when he was crying, because that's what you do when you have a baby, and that line, one big pair of underwear, just snapped into my head, and I wrote it down, and then the next day I was working in my science lab, and I wrote down 2 brown bears who hate to share, and it just kind of kept going like that. I just kept thinking of one line at a time, but it started with the title, and a lot of my books start with the title. Yeah? Good question. Do I write any chapter books? I've never written any chapter books. The first book that I have written that's more for upper elementary school is coming out in the spring, and it's nonfiction. It's about 14 scientists who are all sort of working on the problem of climate change and different ways that we can make sure to protect our planet. But that's the first one that I've written for older readers. Yeah? I think at this point I have about 40 books published. Yes?
How long does it take the books to get in the
That
library?
is a great question. So it kind of depends on the library, because a library sometimes can get a book the day it's released. That can happen. So it could take 0 days from when the book is published to when it's in the library. But I live in a place with a really amazing library system, but it's very slow. So when a book comes out, it can be 3 months or 6 months from when the book is published till when it actually is in the library. So it really varies. Great question.
Do you write books at the same time?
Yes, I do. I write a lot of books at the same time. I'm always working on probably 3 or more projects at any time, because for me, the way my mind works is I get bored very easily. So if I'm working on one thing and I start getting bored or frustrated because something isn't coming together the way I want it to, then I just skip over to a different project and I work on that for a bit, and then I go back to the other one. So I'm always working on more than one book. Yes? I am. I'm working on, of course, like I just said, more than one book right now. One of the books that I'm writing about right now is about a stuffed animal who goes to school. It's called Stuffy School, and he goes to school to learn how to be a good stuffed animal. And another one that I'm working on is, I already sold the first one, although it hasn't been published yet. It's called Attack Bunnies, and it's about these bunnies who are the defenders of their forest. But I sold it as 2 books, so I'm working on the sequel, and in the sequel, At least right now, I think what's going to happen is that some humans are going to try to destroy the forest, and the attack bunnies have to somehow save the forest from the humans. Yes?
Do you write graphic novels?
Good question. So I'm fascinated by graphic novels because I know how much kids love them. My kids love them. So I would love to someday write a graphic novel, and I've kind of tried to start playing around with it, but I've never published a graphic novel or written one good enough to be published yet. Yeah.
How much input do you take from your publisher, or is it all your ideas? And do you use a local publisher, or are there places around the world that you could publish with?
Good questions. So I'll answer the second one first. I work with mostly U.S. publishers, although I do have one publisher that's in the United Kingdom, which is like England. And then a lot of my books are translated into other languages, so that means basically like if people in Vietnam want to publish the book, they'll buy the rights, which means they pay some money to the United States publisher to be allowed to publish it in Vietnam, and then they will pay a translator to translate the words. The illustrations usually stay the same, and then they'll publish it in whatever language is appropriate. And then the first question, now I've forgotten, sorry.
How much input?
Oh, right. How much input does a publisher have? It really depends. Sometimes I write a book and the publisher says, this is great, we're going to publish it pretty much exactly the way you wrote it. And sometimes the publisher will say, yeah, I really like this. Like in My Pillow Kept Moving, my publisher wanted me to change. Originally, the dog was a boy. And she said, how about if instead of the dog being Jack, what if we have the dog be Jackie and have it be a girl dog? Because there's this whole thing about how animal characters in picture books are more likely to be boys. And she said, why not have it be a girl dog? And I said, great, let's have it be a girl dog. And so that was a publisher-initiated change. Let's see. We have time for a couple more questions if anyone has another question. Yep.
When you, how do you make your money? Do you make it when you publish, or do you make royalties after each book?
Good question. I will first say that being a writer is an amazing job, but most writers are not rich, don't have fancy cars. It's not usually like J.K. Rowling, millions of dollars from maybe billions of dollars, I don't even know, from Harry Potter, but that's super rare. Most children's authors don't make that much money, but you make money twice. Well, at least twice. The first time is when you sell the book, the publisher gives you some amount of money, and they say, this amount of money you get to keep no matter what. Even if the book sells 0 copies, you keep this money. That's called an advance. But then, if the book sells a lot of copies, after your book has sold enough to basically pay the publisher back for the advance, then you start getting what's called a royalty, and that means for every book that's sold, you get a little bit of money, about $1. So then if your book goes on to sell 1 million copies, then you would get, about $1 million of royalties from all those copies. And then there are other times you get paid, like remember I said, if your book is going to be published in another country, then you'll get some more money for that, for those rights to be sold in another country. And there are other things like, do you guys have like a Scholastic book fair at your school? Where you can go and buy paperback books. So when a book gets sold to Scholastic to be in the book fair, you get more money for that. So you get paid at different times, but again, not that much. So if you love to write, you should totally become writers because it is such a great job, but don't do it for the money. It is not generally a very high-paying job. All right, I can see we are about out of time here. Okay, so any last questions before we wrap up? Or have I covered everything you guys ever wanted to know about books and publishing? Looks like I have. Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you everyone for attending and for giving us your rapt attention. Let's give Miss Laura Gehl your thanks.
It was really my pleasure, guys, and you were so awesome. It was great to see all of you participating, and you had so many amazing ideas, so I hope that you go home and write some of these into stories because it all starts with those really, really fun ideas.